for me right now is Honda somewhere over the last 12 months has lost the pace that they had. I don't know if they've gotten ultra-conservative after all the engine failures they had last year. But whatever the case is, Chevrolet, I think, has more grunt. And I think when it comes down to a straight fight late in the race, if it's between a Chevrolet and a Honda driver, you have to give the Chevrolet driver a huge advantage over the Honda driver. And the last time this happened, 2015, Chevrolet had an enormous advantage, and Honda just couldn't hold a candle to them. So I think right now the ball is in Chevrolet's corner, and if you look at it from that standpoint, I think Hildebrand of those three is the one that could do the most damage because he does have the experience of being a contender, even though, yes, it was 7 years ago.
We're talking the field of 33. Matthew, let's go into row number 8. We got Gabby Chavez with Harding Racing, Stefan Wilson, and another Andretti entry, Sage Karam, who ironically is from the same town as the Andretti family in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. But he's also with Dreyer and Rainbow Racing. We got 2 Chevys and a Honda in row number 8. Now, Stefan Wilson, I like him. I have had a chance to kind of talk with him. You know, he reminds me a lot of his brother. He's tall. He's very approachable. The fans like him. And, you know, as we know, his brother died in a racing accident in an IndyCar race, and certainly he's done a lot in the name of his brother, Justin Wilson. And I've really had the opportunity to get to know Justin on a personal level over the many years here at Indianapolis of talking with him, and he's actually been on the show before in the past. So, you know, Stefan Wilson, I'm kind of rooting for on a personal basis. But honestly, I was somewhat impressed of what he's been able to do at the track. So we'll start with you, Matthew. Row number 8, Gabby Chavez, Stefan Wilson, and Sage Karam.
Sage Karam needs a finish. I mean, he's crashed out of the last 3 Indy 500s right now. He really needs to get to the checkered flag if he wants to be in consideration again for a full-time ride. I think that's one thing that's really hurt his cause is being unable to get to the finish of this race. Stefan Wilson, the same deal with him. I think a finish would be a big thing for him. And Chavez, I thought he would be further up on the grid based on the practice times he had. I still think, though, that Chevrolet engine and, you know, with the team being run by Brian Barnhart and Larry Curry, they could still somehow get a result. Maybe not the top 10 that they got last year, but I think top half of the field I think is a decent target for them to shoot for.
Tyson, let's go to you. Row number 8, Gabby Chavez, Stefan Wilson, and Sage Karam. A lot of people think Stefan Wilson was just getting a make good because he had a ride last year, and then as we know, Fernando Alonso came in from Formula One. Obviously, he got bumped out of the car. They promised him a ride this year. So a lot of people thought this was just nothing more than a make good ride for him. But there again, going back to Stefan Wilson, he does have a shot just to finish the race. And I think, as Matt pointed out, if he does finish the race, that goes a long way with him having a full-time ride.
Yeah, with Stefan Wilson, like the big thing is they just got to get to the finish, and that'll be a successful day. To be honest, I didn't see them making this race, and the fact that they were able to qualify him in, to me, was a big thing for him to make the race. They didn't seem to be showing the speed in practice, and even though it is an Andretti Autosport car, this is a driver that doesn't get to race a whole lot, so I didn't think they were even going to make the race. And he was able to surprise me in doing that. So that was, I think, a big thing for this team to begin with. So if he can have a good, solid run on Sunday, just get to the finish, log some laps, maybe come away with the top 20 finish, that's a really good day for him. And you know, maybe it can lobby him for some other rides in the future. I don't know if we'll ever see Stefan Wilson running full-time in IndyCar. I just, based on the fact that he's been trying since about 2013 to get rides in IndyCar, I just don't think it's going to happen, but a good day would just be running at the finish. Same can be said for Sage Karam, as Matt said. He's crashed out in the last 3 of his Indy 500 attempts, and the thing with Karam is he has a lot of speed here, but he's always super, super aggressive, and that gets him put in really bad situations where he ends up causing a wreck or he just gets into a wreck. With Karam, it's either feast or famine. You know, he came home in his, I believe it was his first Indy 500. He was 6th or 9th or something like that. But since then, it's really just been crashing and crashing out way too early. He needs to put that aggression away and just finish the race, because he's going to really have a hard time getting into this series full time again if he can't. You know, he was with Chip Ganassi Racing for a while, and that didn't work out. And I think a big part of that is because he couldn't finish the races. Gabby Chavez, that team, we saw this team for the first time last year in this race, and they really surprised everybody by running as well as they did. They went on and did that again at Texas with a top 10 finish again, and now we see them full-time in the garage. So Gabby Chavez, Harding Racing, with all the really the big pieces behind this team, as Matt pointed out, Brian Barnhart's there. He's got Al Unser Jr. as a driving coach. You know, can't really have a better driving coach at Indy than little Al. So this team, they could do big things this year, but they don't seem at the speed that they did last year. But I think they can come away with a good finish.
This is the Field of 33. It's our special day before the Indy 500 that we do every single year here on The Balance. Join us, our official IndyCar contributor, Matthew Embry, and Tyson Lautschlager from OnPitRoad.com. Matthew from Popular Open Wheel as well. Tyson, we move on into row number 7, and we got an A.J. Foyt entry. James Davison, Max Chilton, and Carlos Munoz, another Andretti entry. We got, we've got 2 Chevrolets and a Honda. Certainly, and I point out that because we've seen that battle between Chevrolet and Honda. What say you about Chevrolet and Honda, and then row number 7?
Well, I think kind of as Matt was pointing out, Chevrolet definitely does have the upper hand over Honda this year. However, with this row, I think you have 2 Chevy drivers in James Davison and Max Chilton, and then the Honda of Carlos Munoz, who, for whatever reason, this is an amazing track for Carlos. Ever since he first stepped into an IndyCar, you know, on a part-time scale, he was really strong here, and he doesn't come from an oval background, but somehow this place really just speaks to him. I think Munoz, despite qualifying really middle of the pack, and he wasn't even all that great in practice yesterday. He seemed to be really optimistic about his chances anyway. He seems to think he's got a really good car, and he wants to prove that he should be in the IndyCar paddock full time, which in my opinion he definitely should. I think this is the best of the one-off drivers. I think Munoz has the chance to run really well. I don't know if he's going to get another podium finish or contend for the win, but I think he should be there at the end of the day. And you look at Max Chilton, and he had such a crazy good performance at Indy last year. He led 50 laps in the race, finished 4th. And if you look at, the Vegas odds-on favorites, he actually has the worst odds at, I believe it was 200 to 1. So if you want to put some money on anyone for this race, Max Chilton might be a good one to maybe just put $5 on. Just looking at the odds, Carlin Racing, it's a brand new team to IndyCar, but Chilton has run well on the ovals despite coming from an F1 background. Indy, for some reason, last year was just really good to him, and it seemed like he was going to have an opportunity to win. James Davison, another kind of surprise. He just sneaked into the show on Saturday last week. He really barely beat out James Hinchcliffe for the final spot, and it turned out there was a little bit of animosity between the two. But Davison really improved his speed on qualifying day on Sunday last week. So I don't know exactly what this team has behind them, but the other A.J. Foyt cars and Matthias Leist and Tony Kanaan have been really quick. Kanaan, of course, leading Carb Day practice yesterday. So Davison might also have that speed, too. I don't think he'll be up there with his teammates, though.
Matthew Embry of Popular Open Wheel Now, our official IndyCar contributor, joins us as well. Matthew, we look at row number 7, James Davison, Max Chilton, and Carlos Munoz. What say you?
The thing with Carlos Munoz, I wonder, and I'd love to have Ty's take on this as well, did the 1 year he had with Foyt last year hurt him? Because it just seems like he's overdriving the car more than he ever has. I mean, yes, he's taken the aggressive line before, but he's trying to make the car do more of the work now from the times I've seen him the last 2 years than he needs to. And I think that really gets in your head. When you don't have the car, you overdrive it. And I think that's Carlos's problem right now. I'll be very curious to see how he fares tomorrow. Chilton is certainly a wild card. I mean, this Carlin team, as bad as they have looked on the road courses this year, they have overachieved this week so far. And I think you could say the same. We'll talk about this on the next row when we get to Juncos racing. But I think Charlie Pimble and Max Chilton could be a surprise, considering they do have the Chevrolet engine. And, again, we can't overlook Davidson. Remember, he came from worst to first and was a definite contender for victory last year. So if you look at those three, again, the Chevrolet drivers look good, and I think don't be surprised if either one or both of them is able to steal a top 10 when we get to the checkered flag on Sunday.
This is the field of 33. There is another race going on tomorrow, Tyson. It's in Charlotte. Steve Wilson of Speedway Digest is going to be joining us as well. So we're going to be bouncing between NASCAR and IndyCar because we know we have a lot of NASCAR fans here as well, and they love their Charlotte on Memorial Day weekend as well. And as we've seen, many drivers have attempted that double. So we'll start with you, Matthew. Here we're going up to row number 6. So just keep in mind that we'll be bouncing when Steve joins us. We'll be bouncing between NASCAR and IndyCar, and we got to try to get all of this wrapped up within the next 30 minutes. So we're going to kind of zip through this. But Matthew, defending champion Tomoko Soto from last year's winner with Rahal Letterman, Kyle Kaiser with Juncos, and Robert Wickens with Schmidt-Peterson Racing. Obviously, that's the driver that we talked about that maybe could have got pushed out of the car so that Hinchcliffe could have a ride. That did not happen. Great class there. I really, in spite of business and in spite of sponsorships and money, I get all of that. But at the end of the day, this is Indianapolis. And, the car did not qualify. I get that it was the car that didn't qualify, not the driver. But I applaud Schmidt Motorsports for doing the right thing. Matthew, go right ahead.
Wickens, I think, faces an uphill battle. He had the crash on Monday, so be very curious to see how if he avoids being gun-shy. Kaiser's been surprised. I really thought Kyle Kaiser was not going to make this field, considering how badly Juncos had it with Kaiser and Binder, Rene Binder, in the first 5 rounds this year. But they really have turned things around here. Maybe they've just put all their eggs in the basket and focused on Indy. If they have, they've done the right thing so far. Sato, great win last year, but like I said with Rahal Letterman-Lanigan, I just don't think he's got the stuff to be able to become the first repeat winner since Elio Castroneves in 01 and 02. I think he can get a good result, but I just don't think he's going to be a contender for the victory today, coming up tomorrow.
Tyson, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of as Matt said, I thought Kyle Kaiser was going to miss this race too. I had him and Stephen Wilson as the two pegged that I thought were going to miss the race. I thought even Pippa Mann was going to be able to qualify ahead of those two. But yeah, Kaiser and that Juncos racing team, they really picked up the speed as the month went on, because even at the beginning of the month of May, they really had nothing. And then qualifying bump day came on Saturday, and they had a lot of speed, and they weren't in trouble at all, which to me was a bit of a surprise. So really good for Kyle Kaiser. He's a really talented driver. It's just this is a brand new team to IndyCar for the most part. They ran the Indy 500 last year, but this is a fairly new team. This is their first year full time, so it's good to see them running well, because Kyle Kaiser, good driver. I'd like to see him in the IndyCar series more than he is right now. Robert Wickens, I think this is going to be the first race that he's struggled at quite a bit. For some reason, they just don't really have it this week, and they had that crash in practice yesterday, the other day, and they had suspension issues after that accident, and I don't know if they've really got all the gremlins out of it yet, and kind of have to have them all out now. So Wickens, this could be the first week where we really see them struggle a lot, based on issues that they've had. He's been so strong this year as a rookie, really surprised a lot of people. But we'll see what happens come race day. And then Takuma Sato, it's just, kind of as Matt said, and we've been talking about this the entire show basically, that Rahal, they've really stretched their resources really thin, with 3 cars with the alliance with Oriol Servia. And this is their first year back to being a 2-car full-time organization to begin with. So to have 3 cars is a lot to handle for the month of May. Takuma Sato, he's a really great oval racer. I just don't think he's going to go back-to-back, though.
We go up to row number 5. We're starting to get in the meat of it all. What I mean by that, when we start looking at rows 4, 5, and 6, okay, historically that's where we've seen